Is Jordan Love really that guy for the Green Bay Packers? How does Matt LaFleur handle adversity? And how important is Tucker Kraft? Who could be the replacements for Tucker Kraft in this offense? Hear from someone who has firsthand experience with all of it. Dominique Dafney, former Packers tight end, joins us on today's Locked On Packers.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast to iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Former Packers tight end Dominique Dafney on the show today. We also got some positive injury news this week with Lucas Van Ness returning to practice on Thursday. Matthew Golden working in practice as well. So as we move forward here, we'll keep an eye on their injury statuses, of course, on Friday. Before we get to Dafney quickly here, I keep saying, look, this offense is too good to continue to be this bad at scoring points. Okay. Our pal Mike Renner over at CBS Sports has been on the show a bunch, Packer fan, NFL draft guru, all that good stuff. Really smart guy. He put together the top EPA per play ranked quarterbacks by team scoring average. Okay. So I know people like to tease me. Oh, Jordan Love, it's all about EPA per play, not about wins. And people have pointed out he's 8-4 when his team is allowed 16 or fewer. And Aaron Rodgers was like 65-4 when his team did that. Okay, whatever. But this is why this is important, because this offense is too good to not be scoring more points. To quit. Okay. Top ranked QBs in EPA per play with scoring average. Sam Darnold's team averages almost 31 points per game. Jordan Love is second in EPA per play right now. His team averages 23.7 points per game. A touchdown fewer. Drake May's at 26.5. Jared Goff's at 31.4. Mahomes is at 26. Stafford is at almost 28. Lamar Jackson at 25 and change. Josh Allen at 27.6. Daniel Jones at 32. Dak Prescott at 29. No one is like Lamar Jackson is the only one who's even within a field goal of Jordan Love. They're all top 10 scoring offenses except the Packers. That is going to change. How do I know that? Because Jordan Love is that dude. How does Dominique Dafney know that? He saw it firsthand. He was there for the Jordan Love experience. Let's talk to him. Joining me now, former Packers tight end and current host of the Believe in Iowa podcast, straddling the line, player, media. We love to see it. Dominique Dafney. And Dominique, there's a lot I want to talk to you about. This is a particularly ripe time to be talking about the Packers offense. And you were there at a really interesting time and an inflection point in a lot of ways, because you were there for that 2020 and then 2021 season. You saw early Jordan Love. You saw late stage Aaron Rodgers. You saw Aaron Rodgers at his best. You saw Matt LaFleur kind of figuring things out as a coach, and now he's got to figure things out again. When you first got to Green Bay, though, just first impressions. I mean, you're, Iowa guy, Big Ten, like Midwest. Like seems like there's some nice overlap for you. But what was your initial impressions in Green Bay?
Well, I mean, first off, it was first practice, and I was standing there, and I seen Aaron Rodgers, and I had to take a second, because I was like, this is not normal. This is pretty cool. Like you have to give yourself a second to be like, well, wow. And it was him and Devontae playing just pat and go. And I think Devontae caught the ball behind his back, and I was just like, okay, well, you see, I see why they're great. But besides that, Definitely a well-ran organization from top to bottom. Everything was kind of a machine. And obviously with 2020 being COVID, I feel like we handled it the best of our ability. Obviously there were things that were really annoying, and, having to take 2 COVID tests a day and having to wear a mask everywhere, having to wear a mask during practice. Like, obviously that stuff got annoying, but the way that they handled it, and we took advantage of only being able to see each other, I think that kind of helped us be a better team. And then, of course, our captain and Aaron took it upon himself to, I know he reached out to me a couple times when I was just sitting alone at the calf table, and just like got to know me and was like asking me questions about life. And, he knew some things about me that I was surprised that I was, first of all, surprised he even knew my name. So I was like, okay, like that's pretty cool. But I think the way that they handled it and handled everything, and the offense, it was handled really well. And you could tell like they really knew what they were doing. And not only did they know what they were doing, but they cared enough to put the effort not only to the top man on the roster, but, the bottom man. So it was a full team effort, a full kind of machine running in the right direction.
So you mentioned the Aaron Rodgers part of it. And of course, he at that time, is about to have an MVP season. You, of course, didn't know that, but he's already a legend when you get there. Jordan Love coming in to that situation. I mean, we saw it in Green Bay before with Aaron Rodgers. Like, that can be a volatile thing. What were your first impressions of Jordan?
I mean, I was lucky enough to like hang out with him, and our rookie class was actually pretty tight. It was me, Jay Love, AJ Dillon, Josiah DeGuara, KB, Chris Barnes. And I mean, we hung out and we all just were chilling at each other's houses and would watch UFC fights. So I got a chance to meet him as a person first, and then meet him as a quarterback. And I put it on record. I tell people all the time, well, they were like, what do you really think of Jay Love? And I'm like, he's a dog. And y'all are going to see it. And I promise you, you're going to be like, Dom, you told me so. And I've been back home to Iowa, and people be like, you were absolutely right. I'm like, yeah, I tried to tell you, like, he showed things in practice that not only was he a sponge, but he had the athletic ability, the arm ability. And of course, when you're learning from one of the best quarterbacks to ever touch a football, you're some of that's going to rub off on you. So he definitely took advantage of having Aaron Rodgers in his room, and having a quarterback coach in Matt LaFleur, and all those, like, they had a lot of great offensive minds in there working together and being able to work together and hone in on the craft to the point where now he's one of the highest paid people in the league. And I think his work ethic, there were a couple times I went out to LA and threw with him. So I got a chance to really see how he works, and he's methodical. Everything's about arm angles. Everything's about like just trying to get that 1% better. So being able to first learn who he was as a guy, and then learn how he works. Like, I mean, J Love always has my support, and he made a joke the other day. I won't say what it was about, but he's my dog. I'm always rooting for him.
So you guys are still close. You guys are still friends.
Yeah, he sent me. I send him a video every year because today is my mom's birthday. So like, and he
Happy
sent
your mom
a video to my mom. He was like, "Happy birthday, Miss Dafney." So I send it to him every year because he's just a funny, goofy dude like that, man. He's got a supporter of me for forever.
That's really funny. So okay. By the way, there's a play from that 20. I think it was the 2021 preseason against Buffalo. Do you remember the play where he finds you in the middle of the field?
Yeah.
I remember that was one of those plays where I was like, okay, there's something here. Cause I think that was a second reaction play. That was not the first read. He kind of had to make something happen, and he found you. And that preseason game to me was when I was like, okay, this could actually work. Like, because we don't get to see him practice. You guys get to see it and you get to know him, but we don't get to see it. And there was the Malik Taylor whole shot against cover 2 in the 2 minute where I was just like, okay, there's something here for sure.
Yeah. And I remember what play you're talking about. It was like 4th and 1, 4th and 2.
It was a 4th down play.
And we ran a play action. I think we used to call it Warriors or something, where we fake to the left and go to the right. And his first read would have been the tight end in the flat, but nothing was there. And he thought about running, and then he see me last minute. And I was honestly kind of surprised that the ball was coming my way, because I was the over. So that's usually the last place you look, but it got to me and we converted. And there was a lot of plays like that in practice as well, where we're just playing football, and he's a football player, and he's able to to read defenses really well, but then also be off schedule and be able to make plays when he needs to, whether it's with his feet or with his arm. And so it's like there's a lot, like you said, there's a lot of plays in practice that mimic that. And there was a lot of plays in that preseason and, of course, further on to this day that mimic that. So it was like it didn't just happen. Like he's been working endlessly for years to be able to be the guy that he is today. And that was just kind of the calm before the storm. That was like the warning signal, like, hey, we got another one. Did you see Aaron? We got another one right behind him. That was kind of the warning signal.
More with former Packer Dominique Dafney next on Locked On Packers. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season, whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both. There's no better place to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, it's easy. You just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats. If you get them right, you win. Easy enough, right? It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere PrizePicks operates. So, what are you waiting for? And right now, love this feature. You can stack your picks. So you can take Steph Curry's 3-pointers, assists, and total points and pick more or less. And now you're cooking. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. No, I love that. So 2021 is interesting to me because I brought that team up a lot this year because they had this offensive structure that worked, and Matt LaFleur wants to be a balanced offense. But in 2021, you guys had issues running the ball against these light boxes, against these too high coverages. That was when the Fangio world, Brandon Staley, like, let's play quarters and put a roof on everything. It was so popular then. The offense had to make some adjustments. It turned into, hey, let's just rely on quick passes and some of these other things. What were those? Because I remember the criticisms of, like, they're running so much on second down and they can't run the ball and all this stuff. What was it like being there and figuring that out together, Matt LaFleur, Aaron Rodgers? Like, what was that process about?
It was, I think we honestly, like, as crazy as it sounds, we had too many weapons. And it gets to a point where who do we get the ball? And because you have Aaron Jones, who's running the ball really well, if it's 3rd and short, we could put A.J. Dillon in there. If it's 1st and 25, we have 17. We could get them the ball at any time. We had Alan Lazard. We have Rob, who ended up getting injured that year, unfortunately. Yep. But he was coming off a great year. So it was kind of a tug of war of who do we get the ball to? And who are we going to lean on our run game? But we just had so many weapons. I think we had too much food on our plate. It was like, we don't know what to do with all of it. You know what I mean? So there was a lot of, I wouldn't want to say miscommunication, but it was just like finding our identity sometimes was a little bit different because obviously Aaron and Devontae had their thing. And, they could at any moment turn that on. And we had A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones, who at any moment could be, Sonic and Knuckles. And they could be ground and pound and do whatever they wanted. But then you also had other receivers in MVS and Randall and Alan Lazard. And so it's like we had a laundry list of players. It's like, how do we feed everybody? So I think a lot of that came from was what happened is we had so many players who needed the ball in their hands. It's like, how do we feed everybody and keep everybody happy?
Yeah, and I do wonder a little bit about that with this Packers team because they don't have Devontae Adams, right? But they've got a lot of receivers right now who can make plays. And I asked Coach Jags, our former Packers OC, on the squad show, I said, do you think this offense would be better if they just had like essentially the same players, but the backups to their starters were significantly worse, right? Like if they just had 3 guys that were going to play 85% of the snaps, would that simplify things? And he said, yes, he thought it would because of exactly what you're saying. Sometimes you can it's like going to a diner and the menu is like got a million pages on it. And you're like, I know they don't cook 150 things well. Like I want to go to a restaurant where they make 8 things and they make 8 awesome things. Do you feel that as a player sometimes where it's like, sometimes if we just simplified these things and said, let's be masters at this stuff, let's be this, that would help from you mentioned the word identity. That's what that pinged this for me. Like, hey, let's make sure we do a couple of these things really awesome because that's going to carry us through.
Yeah, and I think that's something that coaches lean on in like during the summer is what is our identity, like you said. What are we going to be inside zone, outside zone? What is something that we're going to be able to lean on when it becomes 3rd and 4 and it's December and we really need to win this game against the Detroit Lions? Like, what are we going to lean on? And I mean, it'd be easy to say yes to be like, if you had your for sure X and your for sure FZ and be able to, have things kind of in black and white and not necessarily have the miscommunication of who's getting the ball this play or who's going to be our guy. But I mean, the way they look at it, I think this Packers team is way too talented to be, what are they, 5-3-1?
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
They have way too much talent. Obviously, injuries and obviously hate to see my guy Tuck go down and stuff like that. It sucks, but it's just part of the game. And, you hate to see stuff like that, but I think they're just way too talented. And it's hard to just be like, no, I'd rather have one really great receiver and then other guys who could be the Rob. And it's like, I don't know many coaches that would be mad about having 4 guys that they can rely on no matter at what point it is. So I think it's easily to just be like, yeah, it'd be nice to have that set in stone depth chart, but shoot, the fact that we can place this guy here and have him in a possibly get a reverse or a double pass, or it adds some kind of consternation that I know that the Green Bay Packers offense loves to have, to where you're not able to guess what they're doing, and then they could be successful in any personnel, in any formation, and they could attack you from 100 different ways if possible.
Yeah, and that's something that they do, I think, still a very good job of like, all right, we're going to run the same concept. This is the same basic concept, but we can run it out of any formation, any personnel grouping. We can run it from 3-by-1. We can run it from 2-by-2. We can do, and we can motion into it. We can, so like there's still a lot of really cool stuff happening here. It's just sometimes I wonder about streamlining some of it, but then you're sort of taking away one of Matt LaFleur's superpowers, like we saw last year with the Malik Willis offense, the ability to just have this one-off game plan and run it for Malik Willis, where you run the ball 40 times and you get hit a couple passes. Like I don't think there are that many coaches who could have won that kind of game.
Yeah.
And for an Iowa fan, you're like, well, I don't know, that's every kind of Iowa game.
I was going to say that sounds pretty familiar, but and look how that's getting us. We're 6-3. So
yeah, exactly right. But I wanted to ask you about Tucker Kraft, and I know that you guys didn't overlap in Green Bay, but you've firsthand knowledge of that position and how they like it and how they want to incorporate it into the offense. Without Tuck, they went heavy 11 personnel on Monday against the Eagles. Do you think that's the only solution? Do you think that's the best solution? And how do you think they'll use other players to try and make up, just from a schematic standpoint of like, in this offense, what are the built-in ways that they can go to, whether it's Christian Watson in the slot, whether it's a 6th offensive lineman, that you think just makes sense for the way that Matt LaFleur wants to play?
Yeah, I think, for one, the fact that they went so much 11 was probably just the reaction of losing a guy like Tuck. It's like the confidence that we have in 12 personnel that we used to it's not there yet. Obviously right. They're going to need more tight ends to show up and be, obviously there's only one Tucker Kraft, but we're going to need you to handle a little bit more weight than you have in the previous games or the previous seasons. And I think they're up for the challenge. Luke Musgrave is a dog, in my opinion. He runs really good routes, catches the ball well, and he's physical. And I think they're going to be able to, within time, get back to the things that they ran with Tuck. And it's just going to take time. I say it all the time. I think tight end is probably the top 3 toughest positions in football, because there's so much you have to know and so much you have to learn. And a lot of it comes with what we were talking about earlier. It comes with reps. It comes with experience. It comes with time on task. And so as they get further into the season, these tight ends are going to make more plays, and they're going to be able to represent or come out in 12 more and loosen things up a little bit. And I think I could see them going in to 11 and when it's like 3rd down, because it's hard. Again, that's a guy who's leading you in receptions, yards, and receiving touchdowns. Those are hard shoes to fill. But I could see them going back to their bread and butter as they get further to the season, as long as the tight ends are able to, kind of match that standard and do even better than they've been doing before.
We've still got more with Dominique Dafney next on Locked On Packers. NFL season is in full swing, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium, surrounded by fans cheering on your team. I'm going this week. I'm taking my son to his very first Packer game. Let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout. It's frustrating. Guess what? That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included. So the price you see is the price that you pay. I love zone deals too. Pick the section, Gametime picks the seats, and you save big. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I bought tickets. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swap, swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. Yeah, it's in the first game, you're kind of figuring out what do we have, right? It's kind of like round one of a boxing match where it's just sort of like, all right, we got to throw some jabs here and figure out what we can really do and lean on the guys we know, which is Dontavian Wicks, it's Romeo Doubs, it's Christian Watson. Those guys are figuring that all out. I want to ask you about that too, because every team is going to face adversity. And the 2020 team had it, the 2021 team had it. I'm sure every team you've been on has had some sort of adversity at some point. How does Matt LaFleur handle adversity? What does he lean on when the team is down, when they've lost? Like, what is the rallying cry? What is the message? What is the thing that he can go to his totem and say, all right, let's get back on track? How does he approach that as a coach?
Well, from what I remember, he's a very personable person. So he doesn't shy away from having a tough conversation. And there were a lot that we had to have sometimes, like me to him or just him to the team, and realize that like this is unacceptable. This is not the team that we are. This is not what we show on film. This is not what we're gonna nip this in the bud right now. So I think he's gonna take a direct approach with it and be like, hey, that we scored 7 points, gave up 10. We can no longer do that. We've kind of showed our ass, excuse my language, but I think he's going to take a direct approach and be like, yo, this is not the team that we are. We are way too talented for this, and we need to step it up. And he's going to challenge people during practice. He's going to challenge people in the film room. And like you said, they're going to figure out what they got and the guys that they got and the guys that they can lean on and who's going to be the guy to step up for us. And I think that's the approach that he's going to take, and that's kind of the guy that he is.
When the details aren't always there, I mean, we saw on Monday, they lose a big chunk play to Christian Watson because you've got a receiver who's, on the line of scrimmage when he needs to be off it. When you have the penalties have been a big problem this year. I know the coaches are talking about those kinds of things. Those corrections are happening. From a player's perspective, how can the players, I always hear fans say someone needs to be held accountable. I never know what that means. I think they just, like, you say that word, I don't know what accountability is in the workplace, period. Sometimes, like, I think it's a really nebulous idea in general, but how do you hold each other accountable? How do you raise the standard from a player leadership standpoint, whether it's in practice, in the film room, just in general? How do you, because it has to be the players too, right? Like, the coaches can't do it for you.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, a lot of it is in practice. And whether it's, I know a lot of guys put emphasis on like running out of the huddle, getting lined up, make it attention to detail when you need to be 2 yards outside the numbers or right on the hash. And a lot of that's going to come in practice of this is where we're messing up. This is where we're not focused. And it starts in practice. So if we're having penalties in practice, if we're lined up in the wrong places, if we have to re-huddle in practice, now we know where the problems are coming from. They're coming from the not paying attention to practice, not the details in the film room, and not paying attention to those small details that win and lose football games. And a lot of that is going to have to, like you said, it's going to be on the players, because you can yell at them as much as you want, but you can't force him to run the right route at the right time. You can't force him to line up in the right position. So they're going to have to take it upon themselves to, hey, this practice, the details are so important, and it's what keeps getting us to shoot ourselves in the foot. So they're going to rely on those details in practice to then carry over into the games.
Is there any reason schematically, like, has there ever been a conversation that you remember as to why this team doesn't play with more tempo? Like it seems like an intuitive solution here to just like, let's just try and get a rhythm. Let's just go, whether it's, sugar huddle, no huddle, to try and do that, because they played very slow with Aaron Rodgers, but that's Aaron Rodgers' thing. He wants to bleed the play clock. He wants to get his towels. He wants to use his cadence. But like, is that a LaFleur thing too? Did he adopt that? Like, what is there anything schematically or philosophically that would hold them back from trying to do that more?
No, I just think that's kind of the scheme. And a lot of it is using cadence. A lot of it is using different formations to make things look different and to use motions and shift to try to get a read on where the defense is. And I have this argument with my friends all the time, like, why don't more NFL teams use tempo or just get the call from the sideline and go? And it's like, well, yeah, but it's not college where guys are just lining up in what they're showing. These defenses are, especially the defenses nowadays, are like, they will start with a safety in the box and he'll shoot all the way back and rotate and have another safety. It's crazy what they're doing on defense these days.
Brian Flores, you're a madman.
They're crazy. So it's just like, you have to utilize your cadence. You have to utilize the shifts and motions in order to not only read, but it gives yourself a better understanding of what defense they're in. So, I mean, they have what it takes. I know when I was there with Aaron, he had his own 2-minute, playbook that we all learned alongside our playbook. And it was tempo, it was fast, it was all hand signals and everything. So they definitely have, the bells and whistles to do it. It's just, I think they lean on their bread and butter, which is a lot of shifts, a lot of consternation, a lot of motions, a lot of deception to try and not only get them, the defense, on their heels, but to be able to help the offense show the defense's cards. So we know what they're in and what they're trying to do.
Yeah. My counter to that would be, isn't playing with tempo part of making the defense be more simplified? Like, don't you have to be more simple in those situations? And you can't sub. So if you're going fast, then you can't sub. We know what we're doing. We have the advantage. I think that would be the case there. But I mean, I think Matt LaFleur's whole thing is, we want to be able to get into 13 or then 12, and then we're going to have the motion and we're going to do these different things. Like that is, you said, the bread and butter. Like, that's still the identity. And so do we, in an adversity situation, want to get outside of our identity? Does that feel desperate? I can see both sides of it for sure.
Yeah. Cause even something like you said, the defense can't like switch or change personnel, but neither can the offense. And I think sometimes that's also what Green Bay and Matt LaFleur love to do, is be able to be in 12 and 13 and 11 and 10 and kind of switch it up on you. If we just stay 12, I mean, they're just going to keep base out there. They're just going to stay in one high, keep everything in the box, and assume like, okay, we'll have our corners out there on their number one receivers, and we'll have our linebackers inside. So it's like, I think, again, I could see both sides. I've heard the argument where like, yeah, at least you could keep them on their heels, but I don't know. I don't enjoy the idea of, because also I'd be gassed, but that's a whole different story. But I think there's reasons to and opposed that I could see why you would do or not do, tempo offense.
Dominique, I appreciate the time as always. Let people know where they can find you and what you're doing.
Yeah, it's Dominique Dafney, pretty much on everything: Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, everywhere. Just holla at me. I'm chilling.
Appreciate the time, man.
Yeah, of course.
All right. Thanks to Dominique for joining the show. Awesome to talk with him. Thanks for making Locked On Packers your first listen. The NFL season finally here. For your second listen, get a double dose of the Locked On NFL podcast. Tyler the Madman Rowland gives you a shot of espresso to start your football day, while Tony Wiggins takes you into the barbershop for the smoothest breakdowns to end the day. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. You love to see it. I think the Packers are going to take care of business on this one. I think they are going to handle the New York Giants. Whether the score reflects that or not, I cannot possibly say, because I can't predict it until they do it. But this is the week. If you don't do it this week, you start to get worried that it will ever happen this year, or maybe, frankly, you might start to get worried it will ever happen for Matt LaFleur, Jordan Love, and this group. And that's a pretty ugly place to be for the Packers. You can't play out of fear. You have to go attack it. You have to go do it. And I thought it was telling. Matt LaFleur mentioned, he said he has to help find ways to keep Jordan Love's confidence up. Okay, well, how about letting him throw the damn ball? That would be a good place to start. How about that? You're a bad running team on early downs. You're a really good passing team on early downs. You're a really bad run team in general on creating explosives, generating value. You can get 2 yards when you need 5. Cool. But this is an elite passing game on short passes. On intermediate passes. Just throw the ball. You can throw teams out of too high. That works, I promise you. So maybe Matt LaFleur will finally figure that out. We'll see. And so we'll be back next week. We will not be live after the game on Sunday. I apologize. Like I said, I will be with my son, my wife, our friends at the game. If you see me, come say hi. And so we'll have the show later. I will have a video podcast, but it will not be live on Sunday night after the game. It will be as soon as I can get it up. I promise. And I'll let you know. Maybe we can still go live, I suppose, on Sunday. But it will probably be Sunday evening, and we'll go from there. So subscribe on the socials to get updates on all of that, and then subscribe to the podcast wherever you get podcasts. Subscribe on YouTube so you can stay locked on Packers.